This is MFG Out Loud. Courageous conversations about sales and marketing for today's manufacturers. With your hosts, Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore.
Hey, Trailblazers, welcome to another episode of MFG Out Loud. We are so glad you're here. We're really excited to talk about creating a connected growth engine tool. This is going to end up being a two-part episode because it's so good. On this, the nature of LinkedIn and hosting a podcast is you get to meet and you get introduced to so many amazing people. And on one of our most recent episodes, Brent Hardman from Powell, I believe episode 27. So check that out if you haven't already, because it's amazing. He started talking about this awesome fellow manufacturer. And he said, you just have to meet Phil and you have to have him on the podcast. So we twisted his arm and he agreed to do it. So today's guest is Phil Sponsler from Orbitform, and he fits the bill and then some. We're diving into a conversation with Phil. This will be like talking to an old friend. At least this is how Ray and I felt when we first met him. He's really smart. He's down to earth, and you better grab a pen because of all the gems that are going to start falling out of his mouth. Like a spring-loaded gumball machine that you don't need quarters for. Imagine. Everybody meet Phil Sponsler. I am going to let him introduce you to Orbitform, and then we'll dive into today's show.
Well, thank you, Allison and Ray. I am Phil Sponsler, president of Orbitform, and I'm normally not on the podcast or on video. So please forgive the clutchiness, which, I'm fully aware of how bad I come off sometimes. But so, hey, Orbitform creates some wild and crazy forming and fastening and assembly automation equipment. We design everything on site. We do about 98 to 99% of our machining and fabrication and grinding and stuff. And we put together machines that help people that assemble products do it better. And we're wildly, crazily, really good at it. So right here in Jackson, Michigan, been in business since 1984 and got about 110 employees, awesome team members, and we're an extremely engineer and technical driven company.
I love it. Well, and I think what is going to be so amazing for people to hear, other manufacturing leaders, is your journey and so many bits of wisdom that you've picked up along the way in terms of sales and marketing. So I want to get right to it and start with, if you would tell everybody a little bit about your journey, and from a 2 to a 9, going from a 2 to a 9, which is your scoring system, which I think is really cool. So let's start there.
Okay, well, a little bit about my background. I'm operations, turnaround guy, engineering, continuous improvement, team building, servant leadership, all of that kind of stuff. But I kind of fit into the area where you look at it and you say, what do people in sales and marketing do? Yeah, they get the revenue and stuff like that. And I've been at Orbitform for 20 years. And, when 2009 hit, in 2010, so we were last in, first out, because the people that are buying equipment, they can't cancel the order. And then when the greed takes over and coming out of it, they say that, we need the equipment. So we're typically first out of it. But we came out of that moment, and we had a Gone with the Wind Tara moment where she grabs the dirt and says, as God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again. I literally had that pinnacle inflection moment where I said, we're never going to let this happen to us again. where we didn't have intake. And so I went on a journey to educate myself in sales and marketing, and hence, apply things. So here you got an operations cement head that all of a sudden had to break that cement head and learn. And so we have, I started reading all the thought leaders, the Jeb Blunts of the world, the Mike Weinbergs, the Colin Francis, the Anthony Iannarino, and then following them on LinkedIn, and going to sales meetings like Outbound in Atlanta and things on that order to educate ourselves. And so what we did was, everything's a framework where you sit there and look at where what alley you play in, but where are you at on the spectrum? And so I like to think in terms of 1 to 10. And so our sales efforts in 2010 and 11 was probably around a 3 as far as sales knowledge, tactics, and strategies. And we said, well, okay, so we got what we deserved, and so now we got to build something different. 2013, we build our own internal CRM that rivals Salesforce. And why that was so important was because the journey we were going to go on, Jeb Blunt's fanatical prospecting, we were going to set the world on fire. So in 2013, we had 21 manufacturer reps, we had 4 internal people, and we saw 400 face-to-face contacts with customers, 400 across all of that. We terminated 14 manufacturer reps. We had 5 internal regional sales managers. We followed a practice. We broke up a division of labor and sales, so you can design your sales structure to be where you get the salesperson in front of the customer as much as you possibly can. And the only way to do that is you have to have a division of labor. So once we started doing that, we kind of had a compounding effect that went on. So we used this really cool CRM that we created, the code and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of people that have a CRM and they almost look at it and they go, it's like you got to force them to use it. If we tried to take our CRM away from our team, I'd be on the end of a pitchfork. So it's 65% of what Salesforce is, 98% usable. We have high schoolers coming in as interns in the summertime, and they're using it within 1 to 2 hours. It's amazing stuff. So that helped us to be wildly efficient, because what we did was in 2016, instead of 400, we saw 4,000 face-to-face contacts.
Oh.
And that was a paradigm shift for us. And the really cool thing was in 2014, we had 2 to 4 firm fixed meetings. And then we had probably between 30 and 40 warm calls. And this is in a week mission, 5-day mission where, we go out, we got it set up, and we get 2 to 4 appointments. That was 2014. In 2016, 2017, we had a compounding effort of what we did in 14 and 15, and all of a sudden it started to come home to roost in 16 and 17, because we ended up having 18 to 22 firm appointments. And these are typically 2 to 3 hour technical meetings about applications, to assemble a product. So what that did is started to crowd out our ability to do warm calls, but we loved it because 22 firm calls in a week. I mean, it's just, the end result was we did terminate in 2011. We terminated 3 big customers of ours that were in a win-lose type environment, not very principled companies. And that knocked our sales down by 30 to 40%. But what we ended up doing, we put all that energy in building new products and innovating or greatly enhancing our current product line. So we did 36 of those in 7 years, three of which turned out to be multi-million-dollar product lines for us. And what's nice about standard product is that revenue stream continues on into forever, and it's, part of the value of the company. The one-off custom machines that we were doing for these bigger customers and that sort of stuff, there was no ongoing, revenue associated with it. So game changer for us. We 2.5 times our sales. But what was really good is we got it to the bottom line. And so I won't say the number, but I will say that several times over, we improved our bottom line with this strategy. There's a lot more people that know, who Orbitform is, these days because of that type of. So you just think about it, 4,000, and then 2017 we couldn't see as many, but they were more firm appointments. And then 2018, the more of it. So we started to go down to between 15 and 1,800, but they were firm appointments. So, I mean, they're creme de la creme type sales calls. And so that's that's kind of the growth structure. And, I hate to show you this, but that's kind of our growth engine right there. And what this does, it's kind of like in the World War II movies where they show tank movements and stuff. This is our attack plan. Here's our metrics. This is the marketplace. So this is how we're attacking the market. We've had this in play, this right here, in play since 2014. But what's really cool is we experimented. So stuff has gone onto this and come off. And then there's been the fanatical prospecting that's just been a mainstay for us the whole time in that. So we created, things that are our own volition, which we have the campaign grind process. I got to tell you about this because anybody can do it. Is that when I took over sales, when I became president in 2008, I had sales reporting to me, and everybody was sitting there talking about, you got to do a campaign, you got to do a campaign. And I said, well, what's a campaign? And so I did the analysis in it, and there was this great big laundry list of all these campaigns and great ideas and stuff, and it only took about 8 to 9 weeks to do one campaign. And mixed results, not very good, pretty bad, actually. So we could do 5 a year. And so I said, got to be a better way. Went in on the chalkboard or the dry erase board, and we said, we got to do it in 1 week. We got to do a campaign in 1 week. So here's what we do. Everybody can do this. If there's one thing you walk away from this podcast is how to do a campaign project. The first 4 hours of the week, have 2 people, a process or something that you're doing really well, and you sit there and say, who else in the world needs this process? And then you go and you do your Google search, you do everything you possibly can, get a big laundry list of company names. You sit there and you take that laundry list of names and you use Upwork to send it off to somebody in Eastern Europe or something like that, where they sit there and they get you 4 or 5 pieces of information. 5 titles, let's just say, the CEO, the operating manager, the plant manager, the head of maintenance, the head of engineering. And they get you names, email addresses, and telephone numbers. Now you get this list back in 24 hours. Now you send out your email message, which should be specific to them. And it's not 5,000 companies. This is very, very, very surgical. So this goes out to them. Another 24 hours go by, and you sit there and say, who haven't we heard back from? Whoever we haven't heard back from, we start to call. You know what? Picking up a phone and calling is the number one thing to do in sales. So now you sit there and you get the call or you get the message and all that kind of stuff, and then you hit them with another email if you can't get any type of response. By Friday, you've got like several things. You either got a meeting or you've loaded their company name into your CRM, which, I call it like golden material because it's researched. There's somebody that would need our process. They could use it. So we started off and we do a campaign we started off hot and heavy. We got about 36 of them done. Now we're kind of on a every other week. We're doing a campaign. But remember, it used to be 9 weeks. Now it's 1 week. And that's the type of thing when you're wanting to take charge and ownership and have, and try things like this, it really challenges you to figure out how to have a driven process versus just, being a victim. And that's probably with the pain and agony that everybody's going through right now. A lot of manufacturers are suffering and stuff, and they don't have a machine on the head end of the business, and they're waiting for the phone to call. Phone's not going to ring. You got to get out there and do it. So the number one thing I would do is quickly educate myself, and then put a sales structure in there that was going to go out there and set the world on fire, because that's what we have at Orbitform.
When you
I love about that journey, Phil, is I think at this point in the manufacturing world, operations guys are going to save sales, because of what you said. As a reformed sales or reformed operations guy, or however you want to look at it, I mean, the fact that you addressed it as a problem to be solved, as opposed to a mystery that shall forever remain, a mystery. Sales is very much a process. It involves a lot of, there perhaps some different skills like in any other department in your organization. But the fact that you sat down and took it apart and rebuilt it in a way that was understood internally, and then most importantly measured the results and then went at it again. I mean, that's what manufacturing people do, and it's working. And I love. This would be a two-part question and rant. I love that your results weren't incremental. If you went up 20%, that's a pretty big run. If you went up 10 times, that's innovation. And that's impressive. That's really a great story. How are you doing on the? My last point, and I'll shut up for a while. How do you, or have you blended in more, I guess, traditional elements of marketing? You've done a lot of, banging on the door, getting in front of people, but from the pure sales tactics side of it, you sure seem to have that covered. How are you addressing the marketing side? Any tricks or tips there?
It's an operations guy that gets educated in just how complex and hard marketing is. And it's not for the faint of heart. And so, Allison and I were talking a little bit about this is that it's the type of thing. So, our journey is that we had many, many years of an ad hoc process. So we'd build a bunch of marketing collateral, and then, a different look would come along, or a different idea would come along, or whatever. All of a sudden, all that collateral's gone, and the new stuff's in. And so I think the number one thing I could recommend to a business owner is that you get a pro to help you.
Amen.
Because and you want the pro to have it be a holistic view. What's the message? What are we trying to do? What is our business? What are the why of what we are, and that kind of stuff. And then you want to sit there and say, what's the look? What's the consistent look across all platforms? Every time somebody sees something, they think, okay, that's Orbitform, because they know it. It's our color, it's our logo, all that kind of stuff. So, we enlisted a firm out of Chicago, Red Caffeine, and, I think it's a 1 to 2 year process. And what you have to do is you have to set the money aside. And, it's not like operations where you can put $1 in and you get 3 out. You put $1 in, you get $1.75 out. It's the type of thing where you got to have a steady drumbeat. You got to build all that collateral, and that's not inexpensive. That's an investment. But it's the type of thing, if you do it right, that is like the gems of the business, your sales strategy and your marketing strategy. So the idea is that once you have that, and you go through all of that, and ours culminated in our website being redone, Gen 3, and we have so many good people here at Orbitform, Jessica Laughlin, and then the Red Caffeine team, and we all got input, but it was all built on that foundation. And so then once you have that, then you got to start working it. So you got to start working the social, you got to start looking at, how you're reaching out to your customers. So I'll have to say that there's there's pure marketing, there's pure sales, and then there's a little gray area in between here. And the idea of it is that you've got to set money aside each year. It's got to be part of your budget, and you just got to have faith that you're investing in the business in the name of the business. And so marketing to me is all about creating familiarity. When we're doing our fanatical prospecting, when we're talking to people, if they're familiar with us, because people don't do work with strangers, they don't want to, it goes all the way back to the caveman. The people that survived was the people that stayed away from strangers, and you had to stay inside the cave, inside the tribe. And so now you have this tool or this vehicle out there that's working for you, so that people are familiar with you, and you're not a stranger.
Well, and I love it that you brought up the word familiarity, because that is what we stress to our manufacturing clients is, first of all, consistency breeds familiarity. Familiarity breeds trust. And when people, in order for them to purchase from you, they must trust you. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, that's so true.
Well, so I love, you said two things earlier, and I think they're extraordinary, and they really stood out to me. For an operations / marketing / sales guy to say, hired 3 customers. So first of all, how many manufacturers do you think are willing to fire 3 big customers, first of all? So I applaud you, because that completely changed and catapulted your sales. The second thing you said was you experimented. I rarely hear manufacturing leaders, and this is not a put down, use the word, be fearless enough to experiment with marketing and sales. So I find it exciting that you did that, and that you're showing other people this is possible and it can be really successful. And so anyway, I wanted to point those 2 things out, which I'll definitely list in the show notes, because I think it's worth paying attention to. And, how did firing those customers, I know you touched on it, how did that catapult your sales and numbers?
Well, so when you're in crisis and it's all chaotic, and you've got, godless customers that are demanding all of your energy and focus, and Saturdays and Sundays and stuff like that, then, you sit there and you look at it and go, okay, how am I going to reinvest? If we do that, how are we going to reinvest that time? So number one was, we did put it into our new products and stuff. And so now we created a bigger platform of really cool stuff. And it really did lead to something new, that we could talk about, and so there's multi-million-dollar product lines that we create out of it. The other thing is that the mind sync of the whole organization, while we were doing off the innovating and that sort of stuff, now you've got sitting there saying it's a little bit motivating to have 30 or 40% of your sales evaporate or not, come in, and saying, okay, what's going to replace that? And I think that was a helping driving force for the structures that we created. So that's probably the best way I can answer it.
Is that kind of where the compounding effect came in? It was, you knew you were at a point of inflection. It seemed like, that you had those customers that were just sucking the oxygen out of the business. Did that help drive and influence some of your decisions in other areas then?
It was motivating. It was highly motivating. And, when you have time, you only have so much mind share to do. You only have so much time. But the whole idea of the campaign grind is just one example of tactics that we created that is just done so much for us. And the idea that we could spend time on creating our own CRM, that's where we started to get some real traction. And so we were pretty motivated when we created new norms, because remember, 21 manufacturer reps, 4 internal regional sales managers, 400 FaceTime engagements and stuff. And so in today's terms, in our new norms and stuff, that's like the stuff that sloths are made out of. But yet I see that with other business owners and other business leaders and stuff. To go to 4,000, it's a new norm. It was a paradigm shift. And, all of a sudden and we had friendly competition amongst the RSMs and stuff like that. And Jeb Blunt, says things like, make one more call. Well, they were competing against everybody and that sort of stuff. And, a story would come up and say, hey, I was headed back to the airport. I was almost going to turn the car in. I saw on the CRM that there was a customer just on the way. I stopped in. I talked to him for 15 minutes. I got a check. So, it's the type of thing where that's the type of camaraderie and motivation we have here.
Thank you for listening to MFG Out Loud with Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore. You can subscribe and find show notes at mfgoutloud.com.